Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and the tarot for the eclipse in Aquarius. This is a big one, folks. I know I keep saying this, but that is just the nature of 2026. But this is our first eclipse on the Aquarius Leo axis. The nodes don't shift until July, but we are getting into this energy. And me personally, and from what I have observed with clients, really do believe that the fixed sign eclipses tend to hit harder, at least in a neutral sense. Like there can be a more kind of intense interaction depending on your chart with other, with cardinal or mutable. Like, for instance, I am a Virgo rising. So if I have a mutable square or the nodes, you know, on any of the kind of corners of my chart, that's going to hit really hard. But I think kind of just in a neutral space, the fixed sign eclipses are really difficult because if you think about cardinal being the beginning of a season and mutable being the end of a season, fixed signs are in the middle and eclipses are about change, and fixed signs, change is not really the modality that they use the most. So that's kind of how I like to think about them. I was thinking of doing like an eclipse season video, but I think I'm just going to infuse the information into these readings. um you know this is a whole new cycle. The last time we experienced this was 2017, 2018. And then it wasn't the nodal conjunction, it's the opposition. So we're in the opposition. The nodal conjunction would have been 18 years ago. So if you have these nodes, buckle up. You are in either your return or your opposition. This is a time of realignment, of reconnecting. They don't have to be your native nodes for you to have that experience. If you're in a square, if you're in a trine, if you're in a sextile, it all has a different energy. So, per usual, check your charts, folks. See where this is happening. Maybe do a little research. If you feel a little at sea, book a reading. Me, someone else, whoever aligns. But these are important times, and what I find is not necessarily that things happen on the eclipses per se, but the 2 weeks between eclipses tend to be pretty wild. Also, a reminder about this eclipse cycle is we never really get a full singular season of this energy. It is going to be transitory the whole way. All of this year and into the beginning next year, we have two-part eclipses. So Pisces and Virgo really drags into 2027, even with the nodes having moved. It's just the way the degrees work. So the nodes are not technically an object. Well, they're not even technically an object. They're not an object. They are a place in the sky where eclipses happen. And so it is about the adjacency of a new or a full moon rather than necessarily the sign it falls in. And just kind of zooming out and looking at the end, well, not really end, the summer of 2027, um, we we get a triple eclipse on the Cancer Capricorn axis. So just know that this is also just a very unusual cycle. It's not often that we get three eclipses all at once. You have to have those degrees lined up pretty tightly to get this energy. So just know that we're also entering a really unusual season. Um, I don't completely subscribe to this, but in traditional medieval astrology, solar eclipses are about people in power and the kings, and lunar eclipses are more about the common man and the collective. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I do think that solar eclipses really do affect people in power a lot. Anybody who has the limelight will get overshadowed or brought low or something like that. So hang on to that because that's pretty hopeful, especially when we hit Leo eclipses, which also tend to have a strong association with people who get visibility. Um, not making any promises, but I am hopeful that um, some people might be toppled during this eclipse cycle or meet their end, as it were. So we are starting this really big deal. On the 3rd, we are going to have a Virgo eclipse at 12 degrees. So I know I've kind of rambled into this, but I really wanted us to kind of grasp what's going on. And the 2 weeks between, the 17th and the 3rd of March, 17th February, 3rd of March, that's when the chaos happens. Also important to note, the Mercury retrograde happens at this time. So we're also getting retrograde energy. We are getting the energy of these eclipses. So do not expect to get a whole lot done, but expect the eclipses to get a whole lot done. All right. Now let's get into this specific eclipse, 28 degrees of Aquarius. If you have anything near 28 degrees of Aquarius, listen up, or in any of the fixed signs. So Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio. With trines and stuff, you are also going to be impacted, but these are the kind of nitty gritty connections here. So just you have been warned. Yeah, and yes, I do have planets near 28 degrees of Aquarius. If you do too, I feel you. So this happens on the 17th, which is a Tuesday. It happens at 6:13 a.m. And it is going to be chaotic. I don't suggest making huge plans. I will say I don't know if work with the eclipses is the right. Yes, it is working with them. There's a lot of debate on doing things on and around eclipses. I find that life just happens and therefore you kind of are forced to do things on and around eclipses. I don't believe in putting your life on hold and running your life by the astrology. My functional approach to astrology is using the astrology as a guide, but not necessarily as like, oh no, I can't go to the doctor on this day because things are bad. I say, oh, I have to go to the doctor on this day. The moon's not really in the best place. There's a square. I need to be prepared for maybe people acting out, for having to advocate for myself, for maybe something to be found. And so I can emotionally prepare myself, but I don't not do the thing on the day. Um, Unless it's really bad. And then I do think about it and sometimes try to change it. But it has to be a really aggressive placement for me to be concerned. Um, so use astrology to inform, to educate, to guide, but not to inhibit, to block, to control yourself. But yeah, the only major aspect that we have in the sky at this moment is a square, pretty close square with Uranus. This is a precipice of change. We are being asked to transform, to shift, and to move through this energy. And I do think, especially if you have these nodes or even just these houses, these are in these houses in the 8th or the 7th, even the 3rd and the 9th. Yeah, and might as well throw might as well throw the 5th and the 11th houses. A lot to do with leaving people behind, with having to progress to maybe pass beyond someone or to see the ending of a relationship. Doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, but it can be whatever is associated with those houses. Um, Also, I could literally do a whole video on like a horoscope for each one. But if you have it on the 6th and the 12th, we're talking health, things that are secret, you know, 1st and 7th, relationships, especially ones that are, in opposition to us or who really kind of shine a light on us as people. So family, lovers, close personal relationships, 3rd and 9th, siblings, neighbors, people we meet within the day to day, the 11th and the 5th, children, community. And I could literally run through all of them. I think I almost have 2nd and 8th, people who take things from us and things that we possess on our own. 10th and 4th, career and our private lives. Yeah, 9th house too. I mentioned they're kind of 3rd house themes, but like 9th house themes are like education, higher knowledge, travel. So like I said, check those out in your chart. But this is going to be really impactful. It's also kicking off something. It's also at late degrees. So it feels weirdly like a beginning and the end all wrapped into one. This is a solar eclipse. People are always shocked when I say eclipses happen multiple times a year. And it's like, yeah, we just don't see them. And not all of them are like full eclipses. A lot of them are partial eclipses. So yeah, it's a lot. It is going to be intense. We are going to be experiencing upheaval and change. I say this in almost every video. My prescription for almost all astrology is just get ready, prepare. That's my 29-degree Saturn in Aquarius. Get ready, prepare. Um, Pardon me. If you have stuff that is a problem or that you see ending, just peel your little fingies off, which can be really hard. Personal experience I did recently, resist an eclipse cycle. And the thing that I was so desperately holding on to wrapped up anyways 3 weeks after the eclipses. Don't punish yourself if you're not ready, but if you truly want to move forward, start letting things go that you feel aren't working. Anything that eclipses or move is for the best, even though it can be incredibly difficult and painful. Just a little caveat, this doesn't happen to everyone, but on the 8th and 2nd axis and the 12th and the 6th, you can lose people to actual death. Very much depends on the configuration of your chart, caveat, and it doesn't happen every cycle. But if you have, I say this very cautiously, I don't want to freak anybody out, but if you have someone who is near and dear and their health is not great, um, it's never a bad idea to spend a lot of intentional time with them and to be thoughtful and caring. And, this could also be a turn in their care where things turn for the better. Eclipses are very finicky. But, I just always tell people if there's someone in your life who you truly value, who um, has health issues, who is elderly, before eclipses is not a bad time to spend extra time with them, to do the things that you had always wished you would do. And it's also after losing someone around an eclipse, because I have, also a reminder that even if someone is completely healthy, it's never a bad idea to show them that you care. Um, yeah, in fact, this eclipse cycle, a little personal, this eclipse cycle last time in 2017 is when I lost them. So a lot of um, difficult feelings. Um, but yeah, just, you know, eclipses don't mean you're going to lose someone. If it's happening in your 12th and 8th, don't, freak out and go, no, someone's going to die. But it is a signature of loss, often in those places, especially in the 12th, especially in the 8th. You know, I've also known people to lose people 10th and 11th and stuff, but usually I find with those losses are a little not like expected, but like the person who is passing is at a ripe age, or this was always the eventuality. I find that 12th and 8th house eclipses tend to be something cut short unexpectedly, something ended before its time. The person I lost was very young, even though their death was already in the process of happening. So just keep that in mind. Please don't freak out. If you do freak out, I will take full responsibility. You can DM me and I will I will send you comforting words as penance for maybe flaring up your anxiety. But it is something that it's hard to talk about, but something that does happen around eclipses, and I do want you to be aware. Anyways, so very intense. We are square Uranus, also loosely sextile Chiron that is moving into Taurus later this year. So I do think I'm a perfect example. Getting triggered by past trauma might come up during this time. But yeah, the square with Uranus, we are going to be confronted with the change that has not occurred. We are going to be confronted with the people who have not been held accountable yet. This is a very kind of big moment. Also important to note, the ruler of this moment is heading into its conjunction. Oh, my eye. Sorry if this video is chaotic. I feel chaotic. We're also in the Mercury pre-retrograde shadow, which always gets me as a Virgo rising. Anyways, where was I? I'm sorry, guys. This might be a frustrating watch. Square Uranus, people being held accountable. Um, anyways, if I was supposed to say it, it'll come back to me. But with this Uranus square, people who have not been held accountable, the consequences for actions, we have been seeing, especially in the US, with a certain set of files, that it doesn't matter what you do. If you have money, you're going to be completely protected by the system, both sides, no matter what they say, are supporting this. And so, the square with Uranus. Oh, Saturn rulership. Haha, I'm back. It'll be going into its conjunction on the Saturday. So Tuesdays when the eclipse is on Saturday with Neptune, and will already be in Aries. So this is also a fresh, really aggressive fallen energy. So this is not your typical everyday Saturn ruled eclipse. Eclipses with Saturn are about accountability. So going back to that square with Uranus, with the rulership of Saturn, there is a confrontation here around the fact that there is not action and change around people's behaviors, around things that are against morals, right and wrong, social codes. And it is up to the collective to push against the powers that be, to harness the heretic energy of Aquarius to make sure justice and accountability and change happen. So just because I say the eclipses aren't going to allow us to do too much doesn't mean that you shouldn't be pushing forward your energy. You shouldn't be manifesting things. And, like I said, there's a lot of conflict around, whether we should be manifesting around eclipses. I think it is important to topically manifest during eclipses. So, what are the themes in your chart? What are the themes in your world? Stick to those. Right now, people in power getting away with literal murder and assault and violence and some of the most heinous things you have ever heard. And so I encourage you in the Eclipse portal to push for accountability. It doesn't have to be from the top down. You can push for accountability with local politics, with people in your circles. Like I said, with some people, you're going to be losing relationships. If you still have people in your life, and I'm not saying cut people off, but if you still have people in your life that you have not confronted around these things, now is the time. And I've had a lot of, not a lot, but some people in my life, the few people who are still in my life who I don't see eye to eye on very much. And I don't believe in only having friends you agree with, but there are certain things that I am not going to, not going to give up on. And one of those is the fact that there are right and wrong things. And if you support the wrong thing, then we have to have a hard discussion. And if you're not willing to have that hard discussion, then we can't have a relationship, right? Because if you can't have discussions, you, yeah. So this is a good time to push those conversations because you will very quickly know the quality of that situation. And I think the longer I exist, the less I am allergic to working with eclipses, to be honest. They are inevitable. They will happen anyways. I think it's just important to be specific. One thing I would never suggest doing with an eclipse is manifesting relationships and love. Don't do it. Manifest other things, but not relationships and love. Um, that's really chaotic energy unless you're a really chaotic person, which then do whatever you want. To to infuse into your search for a partner of any kind. Unless you want it to be really short and sweet and chaotic. And then maybe you should manifest with the eclipses. But be mindful of the outcome that you want when you work with eclipses. If you want something fast and unpredictable and unexpected that is literally ruled by a 4.5, 9 year cycle, because we'll hit that square every halfway through the eclipses, then fine. We're already bound to a 7 year cycle with Saturn, so not that crazy. Oops. There we go. Sorry, a notification came up. Anyways, so expect a lot of chaotic stuff with people in power. Really focus on what you can deal with and control during these eclipses. Like with most astrology, just recognize that certain forms of delays are going to happen, big changes are going to happen. For a lot of people, kind of practical stuff can happen, like your car can break down, especially with the energy of the Mercury retrograde coming through, car breaking down, house maintenance stuff happening. I will also warn you, be careful with fire because Neptune is in Aries for a minute. And fire is going to become a much bigger problem, unfortunately, just like water has become a much bigger problem with that Neptune in Pisces cycle. But yeah, this is a powerful one. It's a potent one. I do suggest upping your protection. I do suggest if you work with guides and with certain energies to call them in to help direct the energy of eclipses. That's another really safe way to participate with eclipses. Another way is to just manifest your feelings, making sure they are long-standing feelings, not just manifesting the feelings of a reaction. So yeah, but I have a beautiful deck here. I don't know if I'm saying their name correctly, but Samgway. I hope I'm saying it right, but they did a new deck. Well, it's not really a new deck, it's a second edition. And I really love the art. It also has kind of like a different They call things different. So like pentacles is honey. I think water is songs. Swords are dreams. Yeah, because I just pulled some dreams. Okay, okay. Interesting. Yeah. This feels about right. Yeah. Okay. So the cards are echoing the tenseness of this moment, the intensity, the kind of friction. I do like the one that we start out with. We do start out with our Hierophant. I love how beautiful these cards are. Hierophant, this is about learning. It is a fixed card. It is associated with Taurus. But there is an element of learning. It reminds us that Saturn is the great teacher and educates us, even if even if those lessons are not always fun. And we are going to have to become changeable and to learn. And I think the best way to do that within a fixed context is to build on knowledge, is to create on other things that we already have created. And that's a way to kind of work within kind of the very structured essence of a fixed energy while still finding flexibility. So be a perpetual student, listen, learn. I think some of you might also be called to be mentors and teachers during this time, and I encourage you to accept the call. Wait to fully formulate that until we get to that final eclipse in Virgo, because that will be a really great moment of information for you. Um, but I do like starting out with that because it slowly devolves into very eclipse energy. Then we have this Knight of Honey, which would be a Knight of Pentacles. I do love this. This is a reminder that we have to work, that Saturn is involved here, that the things that you have been doing, and I've been getting this message really consistently, especially through the end of last year into the beginning of this year, that the things that you've been working on are valid and correct and the thing that you deserve, and that is it is going to come to fruition. However, we do have to be consistent even in times when it doesn't feel like it's going to work out, which I know is hard and never ever fun. But we do need to continue. And I think another little message from Spirit here is also, during these eclipses, no, it's not the time to do big things, but it is the time to incrementally, consistently continue through our practices, through our commitments, through our care, and to be thoughtful about the actions you take. For instance, if you do have a confrontation with someone, take a couple days to digest before you respond if you can. Just taking your time, because the eclipse energy is going to pick you up and put you in a completely different place. You don't need to also be causing that chaos. Then we have the Three of Dreams, which would be Three of Swords. Yeah, I briefly mentioned Chiron in a loose, not super tight, but close enough for me to think it's valid, loose trine. There is going to be a callback to some trauma and some pain. The way we have been harmed and mistreated by others going to be highlighted a bit here. So just, recognize that this is something that is going to be coming up. Allow yourself to grieve through these eclipses. Like I said, this is an ending and a beginning. Yes, the Virgo Pisces eclipses are going to hang on into 2027, but we are slowly phasing them out. And so, we are going to feel that door slowly begin to close, even though we have roughly a year left of that energy. But the nodes will shift in July. And so allow yourself to just accept that the pain exists, that the wounding is there, that the harm has been done. I don't think there are solutions yet, but there will be solutions. So, don't, just because you don't have something in this moment, and I'm speaking to myself as much as I am to you, I have an Aries Venus and I want results. Same with my Mercury. So, take your time to feel, take your time to grieve and be sad. It kind of also reminds me of this Knight of Honey, of like this consistency and this processing. Allow yourself to process in a true process, not just in a quick change and in a need to kind of push forward something. These eclipses are helping realign us. Let the realignment happen, even though it hurts. We do have a Seven of Dreams. Not everyone's being honest. I think we know where that's going on in the world. But I do think in your private life, there are some people who are just refusing to see things for what they are and to accept, how things are, maybe in their relationship to you, maybe in their dynamic with the world and with others. And you can hold space for that while also being honest and true to yourself. These eclipses are going to force people to confront things, and some people, most people honestly, are not going to appreciate it. And you might become a target because you happen to be someone who is more aware. So just know that, some people are not going to be able to see what is so clearly in front of them. And you might be a catalyst for that, and you might get a little hurt. So protect yourself, deal with what you can deal with, stand up when you can stand up, and then take some time to yourself. We got to be in this for the long haul. We got to deal with things, we got to take care of things. So, you know, this is really unstable energy. What is really going to hold you down is that night of honey, that consistency, that kind of day to day routine. If you can really stick to your day to day routine during this time, I would encourage you to do so. Don't punish yourself if you can't, but like pick one thing that you're going to keep doing. I mentioned this in I think one of my tarot videos, maybe like 2 months ago, of like, just make sure you put your keys back in the same place. So there's one grounding activity a day where you're like, this is the same, even though everything's really up in the air. Then we have the Hanged Man. This is the first eclipse of this entire eclipse cycle. This is the first eclipse of eclipse season. This is a fixed sign eclipse. It is a Saturn ruled eclipse within the orb of Neptune. We do not have a lot of agency. And so we are going to have to sit in discomfort and sit in maybe not our favorite energy to sit in, and just accept things for the way that they are within these 2 weeks. And while that is not easy, I think if we can hang tight, some really beautiful shifts, especially once we get past the Mercury retrograde and into the spring equinox. Some really beautiful shifts and changes are going to happen. Also, something really lovely in the midst of all this, we do get a Venus Jupiter trine on Sunday, on the 22nd. And so it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all heavy eclipse energy. There will be little beacons of hope. There will be the Mercury Cazimi. There will be the other eclipse. There will be other trines with Jupiter, which is really going to lighten this energy, which I'm really excited for. So yeah, it's not all bad, but it is very heavy, and we're going to be having to learn a lot of lessons, kind of read the Hierophant. And then we have our 10 of Dreams, which is our 10 of Swords. We are going to be exhausted and overwhelmed. That's typical for eclipses, but accept that that is what it is now. Know that you have limited capacity. Do not push yourself. The eclipses are pushing a lot of things already. You do not need to join them. Doesn't mean that we don't take action, but it's more about responding to the energy rather than initiating it during these 2 weeks. The universe will be initiating enough on our behalf without us having to go into it. And I think as a last, 2 cards, I don't always keep pulling, but these feel really important. We have this really beautiful High Priestess. I really love the imagery. I just love this deck so much. I've gotten a couple of new decks recently, and I'm just obsessed. And then the Six of Dreams, which is this card of kind of traveling, and not quite like the 8 where we're like abandoning something to move on to something else, but we are traveling from one point to another, and by nature we are leaving something, right? We're not necessarily walking away from something on purpose, but our journey has carried us to a different place in time. And so some things will be left behind. It's just like that's not the intent necessarily. And so, allow, especially with the High Priestess and this feeling of shifting and moving. And I do love how this crying figure is being held by these hands with eyes. We are being held and protected by spirit. We're being guided. And I would really invite you to use these eclipses to build your intuition, to listen to your gut, to believe in the truth and the power of who you are and what you believe in and deserve to have. Also, I have a message for a few of you. I'm getting, if you are not being treated well by someone, you deserve more. Whether this is a romantic partner, whether this is a family member, I'm getting specifically a romantic partner. They seem masculine. If you are not being adored and loved and desired and treated with respect, this is not for you. And I think you already know that, but it can be, from personal experience, it can be really hard to leave someone. And this person doesn't necessarily have to be a horrible person. They are just not meeting you equally. And you deserve to be met equally. And, you know, no matter what a person's gender orientation or upbringing is, they can and have the capability of meeting other people in the middle. And if they don't, at some point, that is a choice. And you deserve something a little better than that. Um, so, yeah, that is my reading for the eclipse. It is going to be a lot. We're going to see it unfold. Also, this is a very unique eclipse season with that Neptune Saturn situation. So, I think all eclipses and seasons are unique, but this is a very unique one. So just be ready for some unexpected outcomes. I think this is also, if you're interested in astrology, really going to be, I think the next 10 years, 10 to 14 years are really going to be a big time of kind of shifting our perception around a lot of things, especially astrological ideals. So if you're interested in that, start paying attention because we're going to learn a lot. Anyways, my loves, that is my reading for you. I know I was a bit distracted. Thank you, ADHD. I really enjoy doing these readings. If you enjoy them as well, please like and subscribe. And yeah, I don't have one of the finished ones. I'm going to finish them this evening, but I am making these little bag charms. I wish I had one with me right now, but I don't. But this is one of the manifestation ones. It's gonna have it's gonna have a little keychain and be filled with some herbs and some little magical objects. I'm making manifestation ones. I'm making protective ones. They're going to be going on a story sale on this eclipse. So if you want to go to my IG and participate in that story sale, there'll be 10 of the protection, which are snowdrop, navy and red in color with little white flowers on them. And then these little guys, which are the manifestation ones, they are imbued and infused with the energy of Imbolc, one of the bonfire events during the. I don't really like using the full wheel of the year because there's some questionable stuff, but this is actually a legitimate Irish fire festival. And so I'm using that. Bridget is involved, protective plants, uh, locust thorn and cowrie shells, locust thorn and the protection, cowrie shells and the creation manifestation ones. They're going to be $30 shipping included, so 25 for the bag charm, and then 5 for shipping and handling because I have to take my little disabled ass to the post office. But yeah, I'm excited for them. If you're interested, you can go follow me on Instagram and participate in that. It'll be 7 p.m. CST on the 17th during the eclipse. Anyways, my loves, pop me a message if you have a question, comment below, whatever floats your boat. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a truly blessed and protected Aquarius eclipse. And I will see you later.